Hey everybody, welcome to Convertible Conversations. This is the fifth part of our little talk about who are you listening to. Hope it's been helpful to you, because it's really been helpful to me, because I need to remind myself of these things over and over again. We've been talking about the fact that we have two voices that compete for our mind. We have the evil voice that causes worry and trouble, and it disguises itself as our own voice. And then we have Jesus, the calm voice that produces joy and peace. And we can listen to whichever one we want. We can take a hold of whichever one we want. Our brain only processes the information it gets. It gets information from evil and from God. And then we get to choose with our will which one of those we're going to listen to, which one we're going to believe, which one we're going to accept. Now, every day in these teachings and in the writings and pastoring and things that I do, I give you all Bible verses that talk about who you are in Christ, how good God is, verses that tell about His provisions. And many of you, like me, keep a list of those. You have a journal, and you go over those verses and you internalize them. And then when the evil voice comes, you recognize it as counterfeit and you refute it, and you're able to prevail. I do that too, most of the time. Sometimes I forget. That other voice is cunning, it's deceptive, it's relentless. It hits us when we're down, when we're tired, when we're weak, when we're sick. But it has no real power. It comes, as Jesus says, to steal, kill, and destroy the true things that the voice of Christ in you says about you. Mammon, the old verse that the King James, word that the King James translates in the Matthew 6 passage, Mammon, the other voice that we can listen to or not, is a force, and its goal is to control everything in your life, in my life, and in everyone in the world. It does that by stealing and killing and destroying the words of Christ in us that produce rest. It destroys our rest and our peace. Rest in God, rest in Christ, the voice we hear from Christ, produces joy and peace and patience and contentment. The evil voice, Mammon, attacks three primary things. It attacks our treasure, whatever it is that we really value, our talents, we all have some, and our time. Obviously, everybody has time. We all have 24 hours in every day. Now, our treasure can include things like money. As a matter of fact, in many translations in the Bible, it's translated as money or wealth or whatever. It can be things like status, which may not come from money. It can be good looks. Our treasure can be our education, our ability to think and comprehend, our IQ. It can be our stock portfolio. So I want you to, after this is over, maybe take a little time and think about, what is your treasure? Another way to look at that is, what is it that gives you meaning? What is it that gives you significance? That's your treasure. So the evil voice in you will either start with your time or your talent or your treasure, and then it will suck in the other two. You know, let's say, for example, that you have a real talent or ability for repairing clocks, and you get really good at it, and people, tell you how good you are at it, and you get jobs for repairing clocks, and you get the opportunity to speak and talk about how to repair clocks and things like that. That can become your treasure. It can become your identity. It can become where you get all your significance from, and then it can start to take all of your time. You can start to devote all your time to that. So then you've got your treasure and you've got your talent together with your time, and it can consume your life. And if there's any challenges to that, it can really bother you. So when we listen to the bad voice, accuser man, he's going to try to get our talent, time, and treasure. And then we forget who we are in Christ and the significance we have, our real significance from who we are in Christ. And many of us who've been involved in bad religion before, we can revert back to our old religious patterns and think, all right, now I've got to start working hard and do all I can to please God, to gain significance with God. we forget that we already have it. When we listen to the bad voice, to accuser man, we forget who we are in Christ. We forget the significance we already have as children of God. And we can get into the pattern of thinking that we have to produce more and more to have significance in life. And we worry, and we get uptight, and we stress, and then we work harder and longer than we should, and we get more uptight. And that stress can even cause health problems. All of that comes from listening to the evil voice who attacks our time, talent, and treasures. So I encourage you to think about, what is your treasure? What do you get your significance from? If it's anything other than who you are in Christ, then the evil one is doing his job with you. Remember what Jesus says, "Come to me, and I will give you rest. My yoke is easy, and my burden is light." Come to me. Keep your eyes on Jesus. We're going to learn a little bit more about that tomorrow. Thanks, everybody. See you then.